What happens when one of Hollywood's most enigmatic stars walks into a studio, where tough questions are not just expected, but weaponized? From the very first moment, the air is thick with tension, promising a confrontation that won't follow the usual celebrity script. This is not a polite press tour stop. This is a test of composure, confidence, and control before it's over. Everyone watching will be forced to pick a side. Johnny Depp steps onto the view, set to a divided reaction. Applause breaks out from one side of the audience, while the other remains noticeably silent, creating an uneasy balance before he even takes his seat. Joy Behar sits poised at the table, her expression sharp and calculating. The unmistakable look of someone who has already decided how this conversation should unfold. Depp greets the panel with a restrained nod, his calm exterior betraying an awareness that this interview is anything but friendly. Joy wastes no time getting to the point. Leaning forward, she directly challenges him, questioning whether he truly deserves the redemption Hollywood appears to be offering after years of public controversy. The studio falls silent as her words hang in the air, heavy and deliberate. Depp doesn't react impulsively. Instead, he responds with measured clarity, rejecting the very premise of her question. He explains that he isn't seeking redemption, approval, or permission to exist. He is there because he is an actor who loves his craft and never stopped working, even when others wanted him erased. Unsatisfied, Joy presses harder, demanding accountability and pointing to the headlines and testimonies that shaped public opinion. The tone sharpens and the atmosphere shifts. Depp leans back, studying her calmly before responding with quiet firmness. Accountability to whom he asks to people who skim headlines but ignore evidence. He reminds her that the legal battle was public, exhaustive, and transparent, and that the truth emerged in court. He makes it clear he will not apologize for surviving lies and manipulation, even if that answer disappoints her. The audience reacts instantly, applause mixed with murmurs. While Joy attempts to regain control, momentarily rattled, she pivots to another angle, bringing up Depp's admitted struggles with addiction, his private messages, and moments from the trial that didn't portray him as flawless. She challenges him on how he reconciles those facts with the image he is supposedly rebuilding. Depp cuts in without hesitation, rejecting the idea that he is crafting any image at all. He speaks plainly about being human, about mistakes made in pain, and about how his darkest moments were dragged into public view and used against him. Despite all of it, he says, the jury still recognized the truth. As Joy leans back, arms crossed, it becomes clear this isn't the takedown she anticipated. She shifts again, invoking the court of public opinion and accusing him of escaping consequences due to fame and wealth. Depp responds with a tired, knowing smile. He admits he cannot control what people choose to believe and has learned that trying to satisfy everyone is a losing battle. What matters to him are the people who truly know him, not narratives built by tabloids or social media. When Joy insists that his platform comes with a responsibility to publicly demonstrate growth, Depp's frustration finally surfaces. His jaw tightens, but his voice remains controlled. He states firmly that he owes no one a performance of personal growth. He has already paid dearly, losing years, reputation, and career to lies, and refuses to sit there, proving his worth to anyone. He knows who he is, he says, and so do the people who matter. By the end, the studio is wrapped in thick, uncomfortable silence. The hosts shift in their seats, the audience unsure whether to clap or hold back. What began as a confrontation has turned into a powerful standoff, one where calm resolve meets relentless scrutiny, and neither side walks away unchanged. To her credit, Joy doesn't retreat. She leans in again, her voice lowering into something more deliberate, more serious. She brings up the recordings, the texts, the evidence of a deeply toxic relationship, pointing out that neither side emerged spotless. Her question cuts sharply. Why does he walk away labeled a hero while his ex-wife is vilified? And doesn't that imbalance trouble him? Depp pauses for a long moment, the kind of silence where a single wrong word could change everything. When he finally speaks, his tone is slow and controlled. He makes it clear he never asked to be a hero, nor did he ask for anyone else to be destroyed. What happened, he says, was a private relationship forced into the public eye by others, not by him. He didn't run to talk shows or write op-eds. He defended himself in court, and the jury made its decision based on evidence. If people are angry about that outcome, he suggests, perhaps they should examine why they believed a false story so easily, before Joy can respond. Depp continues, his voice now carrying a fire that hadn't been there before. If fairness is the topic, he says, then fairness needs to be examined honestly. He reminds her that he lost roles, lost work, and was effectively blacklisted before any trial ever began. In the court of public opinion, he was guilty the moment accusations surfaced. Where, he asks, was the presumption of innocence then? He fought for years just to have his case heard, and even now, he's still being questioned about whether he deserves a place in the industry. So, he says bluntly, he's not going to apologize for the truth finally coming out. The studio falls into a heavy silence. Joy studies him, recalculating her next move, while the other hosts seem frozen, unsure whether to step in. Depp remains composed, waiting. When Joy finally speaks again, her tone has shifted, less aggressive, more strategic. She reframes the discussion around the Me Too movement, asking whether he believes it got it wrong in his case, and whether he worries his story could be used to discredit real victims. Depp recognizes the trap immediately, but doesn't dodge it. He acknowledges the importance of the movement, calling it necessary and long overdue, something he fully supports. What he rejects, he explains, is the idea that truth and due process should be abandoned out of fear. False accusations, he says, are rare but real, and when they happen, they harm everyone, real victims, included, by giving ammunition to those who want to undermine legitimate claims. His case, he insists, wasn't a failure of a movement, but the result of individual choices and their consequences. Joy presses again, pointing out how his case has been weaponized online as supposed proof that women lie and accusations can't be trusted. Depp shakes his head, his expression turning almost somber. He calls it tragic, but makes one thing clear: he didn't create that narrative. He was trying to clear his name and reclaim his life. If others twist the truth to serve their own agendas, that responsibility doesn't belong to him. He can't control how people interpret reality. He can only tell it at that moment. One of the quieter hosts finally steps in, attempting to soften the exchange. She asks what he wants people to ultimately take away from his story. Depp turns toward her, his expression easing. He says he wants people to remember that everyone deserves to be heard, everyone deserves to tell their side, and above all, everyone deserves the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. It shouldn't be controversial, he adds, but somewhere along the way, society decided that some accusations automatically equal guilt, and that mindset is dangerous. Joy isn't finished. She points out that he had money, lawyers, and a platform, advantages most falsely accused people don't have, and asks whether his case simply proves the system works for the rich. Depp nods, acknowledging the truth in her statement. Yes, he had resources, and yes, they mattered. But he flips the argument on its head. If someone with his resources still nearly lost everything, years of his life, his reputation, his career, then what chance does an average person have? That, he says, is the real issue. The system isn't fair for anyone. It's broken. Joy pauses, clearly caught off guard. She hadn't expected that answer. After a brief regroup, she shifts once more, asking about his future and whether he fears this chapter will define every role, every interview, every appearance from here on out. Depp smiles calm, knowing, unbothered, and the look on his face suggests that for the first time in the conversation, he's already made peace with whatever comes next. Asterisk. This time, Depp's smile feels real. He admits that of course he worries about being permanently defined by the controversy he's human, but he also believes that meaningful work eventually speaks louder than scandal. If he keeps creating and telling stories, he says, that may be what people remember. And if it isn't, if this chapter follows him forever, then at least it will be remembered for the truth, not for lies. Asterisk. Joy leans in again, her tone softening into something almost conversational, as if trying to lower his defenses. She asks whether, after decades in the industry, he thinks Hollywood has changed for the better or grown worse. Depp considers carefully before answering. Hollywood, he explains, has always been complicated, an industry built on image and perception, capable of beauty and cruelty in equal measure. What's changed is the speed. Social media, non-stop news, instant outrage, everything moves so fast now that no one pauses to think or examine facts. In that environment, destroying someone is easy. Rebuilding them is not. Asterisk. Then Joy strikes again, sharper this time. From her perspective, she says, he looks just fine back in the spotlight, landing roles, sitting on talk shows. So what, exactly, did he lose? The room shifts uncomfortably. Depp's expression hardens, not with anger, but with gravity. He answers plainly. He lost years of his life. He lost time with his children that he can never recover. He lost friendships, trust, and a basic sense of safety. He lost the ability to walk down the street without being judged by strangers who thought they knew him. Yes, he's working again, and he's grateful, but being employed again doesn't erase what was taken. Having your entire life put on trial for the world, he says, is something you don't just walk away from. Asterisk. When Joy tries to respond, Depp cuts in, his voice rising just slightly. The worst part, he says, wasn't the people who believed the lies, it was the ones who knew the truth and stayed silent. People in the industry who had worked with him for years, who knew his character, watched him be torn apart and said nothing to protect themselves. That betrayal, he explains, is what truly broke something in him. He didn't just lose work, he lost faith in people. Asterisk. The studio is silent. Joy hesitates, then presses forward, asking whether he feels betrayed by Hollywood and if he'll ever trust the industry again. Depp exhales, his voice quieter now. Trust, he says, is hard to rebuild. He understands how the business works and doesn't entirely blame people for protecting their careers, even if it hurt. What he does blame is the hypocrisy, those who publicly preach justice and integrity, but were quick to discard him without asking questions. As a result, he's more cautious now about who he lets close. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Asterisk. Joy shifts again and asks whether he'll ever speak to his ex-wife or find closure through reconciliation. Depp's expression remains unchanged. There's nothing to reconcile, he says. What happened, happened. They've both moved on, and there's no reason for contact. When Joy suggests forgiveness might be valuable, Depp looks directly at her and calmly explains the difference. He isn't angry, he's done. Anger would mean he still cared. Forgiveness, he adds, isn't owed. It's earned, and not everyone earns it. Asterisk. The other hosts watch the exchange like spectators at a tense match, heads turning back and forth. One of them finally steps in, attempting to lighten the mood by asking about upcoming projects. Depp visibly relaxes, appreciating the shift. He talks about new films, collaborations he's excited about, and the simple joy of doing what he loves again without constant noise. Making art and telling stories, he says, is all he ever wanted. Asterisk. Joy, however, isn't finished. She reminds him that noise is part of the job now and that audiences want to know the person behind the art. Depp sighs. weariness creeping into his voice. He deals with it by tuning out the comments, avoiding the chaos, focusing on his work and the people he loves. Letting the noise consume him, he says, would mean losing himself, and he's already lost enough. Then Joy goes for the hardest question of all. She asks whether he thinks he's a good person. It's a trap designed to corner him no matter how he answers. Depp pauses, truly considering it, then responds with quiet honesty. He says he's a flawed person who's tried his best. He's made mistakes, hurt people, and carries regrets, but he's also loved deeply, stayed loyal, and shown up for those who matter. Whether that makes him good, he doesn't know. Like most people, he's still figuring it out. Joy pushes, insisting that after everything he's been through, he should have a definitive answer by now. Depp lets out a small, humorless laugh. He tells her he spent years in therapy, examining his life, his choices, and his relationships. He's done the work. What she's asking for now, he says, is a public performance of redemption, a confession for the audience. And that, he refuses. His growth and healing are private, not something he owes to anyone watching. Depp finishes his thought with quiet finality, making it clear that his growth belongs to him alone. It isn't a performance, it isn't content, and it isn't something he owes to an audience. The crowd reacts instantly, some break into applause. Others remain silent. Joy raises her eyebrows, clearly caught off guard by his blunt honesty. She pivots quickly, asking whether he believes the industry owes him anything, or if he expects apologies from those who abandoned him. Depp shakes his head without hesitation. He says he doesn't believe he's owed anything at all. People made decisions based on fear, headlines, or career survival. What the industry does owe itself, he adds, is a serious reckoning with how quickly it destroys people without waiting for facts. But apologies. He isn't waiting for them. Joy presses harder, asking how that doesn't make him angry or bitter after everything he lost because people believed lies. Depp meets her gaze calmly and admits that he was furious once, deeply, dangerously angry. But that kind of anger, he explains, is corrosive. It consumes you. So he made a choice. Stay angry and let it define him, or let it go and move forward. Letting go didn't mean forgetting or forgiving everyone. It meant refusing to let rage control the rest of his life. Joy shifts the focus to accountability, accusing him of leaning too heavily into victimhood, despite admitting he wasn't perfect. This time, Depp's frustration finally breaks through. His jaw tightens as he lists the ways he's already been held accountable: courtrooms, testimony, public humiliation, career loss, and the total exposure of his private life. He asks bluntly what more she wants. Public begging. A ritual apology. He refuses. He acknowledges mistakes, but refuses to erase the reality that he was also abused and lied about just to make others more comfortable. The energy in the studio changes completely. Joy insists she's only trying to have an honest conversation, but Depp cuts her off sharply. He accuses her of trying to trap him into statements that fit a predetermined narrative, calling the interview a hit job disguised as dialogue. Joy bristles, raising her voice and defending her role as someone who asks tough questions. Depp doesn't match her volume, but his tone turns icy. He tells her he can handle tough questions. What he won't accept is hypocrisy disguised as concern for truth. She's already decided who he is, he says. So nothing he says will ever be enough. The silence in the studio is suffocating when Depp turns the question back on her. She asked him if he's a good person now. He asks her the same. He questions whether publicly tearing someone down and demanding they prove their worth on national television is goodness, or simply power. Joy opens her mouth but can't respond. The audience is completely still. Depp continues, explaining that he showed up honestly and vulnerably, only to be met with constant attempts to twist his words. Before demanding accountability from him, he says, she should consider what she's actually trying to achieve, or points. Joy insists she's voicing what the public wants to know. Depp cuts in again, asking accountable to whom. He reminds her that he was held accountable in a court of law, where a jury examined the evidence and ruled. But that outcome isn't enough for her. What she wants, he says, is submission admissions that aren't true, a version of him that fits neatly into her narrative. And he refuses to become that asterisk when Joy claims she gave him a platform. Depp lets out a short, bitter laugh. He tells her he didn't need a platform. He came expecting a real conversation. What he got instead was an interrogation driven by preconceived beliefs. When Joy says she hears him, Depp shakes his head and says she doesn't. If she did, she wouldn't keep asking the same questions in different forms, refuse to accept that reality isn't as simple as she wants it to be. Joy raises her voice again, saying she's speaking for people who think he got away with something. Depp remains calm, stating that people are entitled to their opinions, just as he's entitled to defend himself and refuse coerced contrition. She doesn't get to put words in his mouth or demand guilt for things he didn't do. Finally, Joy asks what he wants people watching to know. Depp looks straight into the camera and delivers his closing message: don't believe headlines blindly. Don't judge without evidence, listen fully. And remember that everyone deserves the presumption of innocence and the right to defend themselves. Joy nods stiffly, clearly dissatisfied, and thanks him for coming. Depp stands, shakes hands with the hosts, and pauses to look at Joy one last time. He thanks her and adds that he hopes next time they can have a real conversation instead of a cross-examination. As he walks off the set, the audience erupts. What viewers have just witnessed isn't a routine interview. It's one of the most intense, confrontational moments in recent television history, leaving the audience to decide for themselves who truly held the power in the room.